Okay, so good afternoon. So I'll start with the introduction to the exam pattern and how let's say the number of questions, and then let's say the cutoff score and the trend in the exam, the nature of questions asked. So that it will be a baseline for everyone, whether someone is having knowledge in the information about the exam or just a beginner. So that will be this will kind of be a baseline for all, right? Most of you may be aware of this. So so this exam is meant for uh, to test the uh, eligibility of the uh, aspirants for teaching, and second, uh, fellowship for research. And now, in order to make the PhD admission common across the country, they also included another category called NET PhD. So the same score can be used in different universities for PhD admission rather than appearing for multiple exams in different universities and colleges. So that's the purpose of this exam. So if you are clearing this exam, let's say with NET PhD, then you will be eligible to get admission only for 1 or 2 years. So within that, you need to get the admission. But if you are getting, let's say, JRF from the date of declaration, within 2 years, you need to get admission for PhD. But then the fellowship will be available for 5 years, maximum of 5 years. So there will be a different categories in terms of amount. Junior research fellow, then probably after 3 years, depending upon the research progress report submitted by your guide and the university, then you will be, changed into senior research fellow. So the amount also varies according to the places where you are. But otherwise, the added advantage will be uh, when you are going for central university for the interviews, the JRF candidates will get additional points. So probably, let's say 5 points, and the people with the net will get 3 points. So that's how it varies. But then when I appeared, the score was like that. So, but then there is a difference between the person who got only JRF, net JRF, and only with the net. So these are the differences. Now, with regard to the validity of the certificate, the qualification, once you are declared as net qualified in assistant professor, then that's valid for a lifelong one. If you are now qualified under net with net assistant professor with JRF, the qualification for assistant professor is valid lifelong, and JRF is valid only for 2 years. Sometimes people get that confusion because multiple deemed universities, and then sometimes they they misinterpret based on AI content. That's one difficulty, and these are the two categories that has been there for years. And sometimes now these PhDs only valid for limited year, and then you need to reappear for assistant professor as well as the no JRF whatever. So PhD is limited. Net in PhD is limited. That you need to be aware. And another category is like some students, with NEP background, new education policy background, they complete 4 years degree. So UG 3 years plus 1 year. So that becomes 4 years degree. Now those candidates who scored more than 75% in their fourth year, they can get net JRF, but they will not be eligible to join as an assistant professor. So that's one distinction that people have to be aware. So with a 4-year, 4-year degree, you can go for NET JRF directly and join PhD and get the fellowship, but will not be eligible for assistant professor. So if somebody is there with the UGC NET assistant professor with a master's in the subject and NET assistant professor, they can join as assistant professor in any university, even in the central universities. And sometimes, like institute like this gives salary around 70,000. And it varies. Central universities actually gives, more, comparing with the people, those who have PhD also get very less comparatively, let's say in Tamil Nadu, different universities. And then how it is treated in that. So the having master's degree with UGC NET assistant professor has, lifelong one, let's say, status, and that is qualified once and for all. JRF, if you are getting higher score, then yeah, you will have advantage of doing your PhD for 4 to 5 years without any difficulties, financial difficulties, and you can also explore in different parts of the country, like different universities across the country. So these are the advantages and certain differences in terms of classification of, let's say, the exam, like NET qualified, PhD qualified, NET assistant professor with JRF, NET only with PhD, and the differences in terms of people, those who have only without masters but a 4 years degree, and how that will be treated. So this basic understanding is required. Now coming to the format of the exam, there are two papers. Paper one dealing with the teaching aptitude and then research aptitude, that plays a major role, and there are 10 other overall 10 categories are there, but put together 50 questions will be asked from there. It's more of general studies nature. And the second paper is of the subject that we are choosing. In our case, it is psychology. So the subject, the standard will be of PG, and MCQ will be framed in all those 10 topics, and the questions are spread across those 10 units or chapters, and those topics that is classified, and the questions will be asked from there. So there is no negative marking. Each questions carry a equal mark, and so put together, the ranking will be done for the 300 out of 300, how much you are getting. So earlier there used to be a classification, some minimum requirement is there, but there is no minimum cutoff in any of the papers. Both the papers put together, and then a ranking is decided. Now, with regard to the topics, as said earlier, paper one consists of teaching aptitude, research aptitude, reading comprehension, mathematical aptitude, people and environment, communication, ICT, governance, and data interpretation. So now, with regard to these things, some of you, since from social science background, some of you may feel that this is too much, but then it requires teaching aptitude and research aptitude, and therefore certain questions will be little difficult. But that's where you need kind of exposure through coaching or some kind of training and the practice. So especially with regard to data interpretation and a little bit of mathematical reasoning, you may have to make effort. But otherwise, teaching aptitude and research aptitude, all those things, most of you, especially research aptitude, you might have studied in your PG as a part of research methodology. So the questions will be very simple in nature, because this question is asked across, common, this paper is common for all the subjects, including people from MCA computer science, and then let's say economics, and nearly, different subjects. So this is common for all. So the questions will be like that. And let's say, so you need to get around, let's say, 80 percentage now. Earlier, we were, if you are getting around 50 to 60 percentage, yes, we will be able to get. But now the competition has increased. In other words, number of students appearing for the exam has increased, and the availability of materials also increased thanks to digital world. So material is also available. But now the challenge is how to focus and narrow down and prepare in a smart way. But then, since it is available, then the topics that you have to study also more. So probably you can choose. So if you ask me, you can choose which is your strong area, and then focus on those things. Nearly out of 10 topics, if you are thorough with, let's say, 8 topics, say if somebody is thinking that I am very bad in mathematics or kind of anxious towards maths, ignore data interpretation, focus on other things. But if somebody says I'm good in mathematics, but then probably governance or something not okay with that, focus on data interpretation. So in that way, you have a little bit of flexibility of not completely ignoring or omitting, but to focus on the area where you are strong and prepare accordingly. And more or less the questions are fixed now. More or less there is no kind of you know uh, kind of variation, sometimes asking in one particular area more questions and in other areas less questions, like in other competitive exams. There is nothing like that. Here the questions are more or less fixed in each area, so you can comfortably make prepare and any one topic and master that area and go to the next area. It's not like other exams. Okay, if I prepare this topic well, will they ask more questions from other area or something like that? You need not worry about here. Here, more or less, the syllabus is fixed and you need to be strong in your basics. So, paper one, go through the previous question paper thoroughly. With regard to computer awareness, things have slightly changed. Earlier, based on the CBSE, basics computer science, simple questions used to be asked: what is RAM, what is ROM, all these CPU related questions. Now they have taken to cyber crime, certain advanced the recently, which is applicable as a current affair. Basic things that is required for this particular generation. Accordingly, things have been revised here. Standard textbooks have to come. But then, if you are able to go through the simple terminologies that is available, in the day-to-day, conversation, I think you need to be aware of that, and that's it related to computer awareness. That's where there is a slight change the way how the questions are asked. Otherwise, sometimes environment-based questions are asked from the climate change conferences, current affairs, the type of the different names they give to cyclone and other things. These two areas slightly having current affair, following current affair, preparing for other exams will give added advantage. So this is one biggest advantage you may have if you are joining Kingmakers, which is giving actually coaching for various competitive exams. So in that way, you will have added advantage in terms of having knowledge in your environment and let's say computer awareness. So these two areas are heavily current affair driven. So I think that will be a added advantage for you if you're following the material here. Otherwise, the other area like reading comprehension, research aptitude, logical reasoning, and let's say teaching aptitude, more or less fixed. Sometimes teaching aptitude can be asked. So one or two questions can be based on the schemes, government schemes related to education department. So that's where around let's say 10 questions may be current affair driven. So apart from that, I think you can rely on the previous question paper and basic materials. Otherwise, you will be able to score minimum, let's say 30. So even if you are going without preparation, you should be able to get around 20 questions, answer 20 questions. But you need to give age, cross 35 to 40 to get UGC NET. But then if you want to have a JRF, you need to get at least minimum 40 questions correct. So 80% you need to cross. So that will be your overall target for you to while you are preparing for this exam. Now, let's say in terms of the trend and the type of, let's say the cutoff score that is there over the years from, let's say, 2022. This is for the general category. And let's say the JRF is in 2022 was 210. In the last exam, 2025 December, it was 234. So somewhere, if you see, the range has drastically increased. 2010 to sorry, 210 to 234. So earlier, there used to be only a difference of, let's say, -5, plus or -5. Even if you see, that's how it has, there is a increase in the things. I would say, though the level of difficulty, people say that some type of questions are increased, the way how questions are changed, but then the basic knowledge remains the same. So they want to test the knowledge in that particular subject, and the funda remains the same, but the way how they are asking is only changes. But these are all different cutoff asked in different years. I mean, the based on the questions how the selection was done. But then, if you see, more or less, it is somewhere closer to 60 percentage earlier, last year. Let's say let's say 5 years back. But now, increase slight increase. This is the total score, that's a percentage. But then, uh, I would say somewhere around, if you are able to get 80 percentage, then you should be able to clear this. So, what is the safe score down the line? Maybe next year. Probably if you are getting somewhere around 240 out of 300, then that's the safe score uh, for you to ensure getting into this. Uh, Otherwise, base, let's say you can have a target of 80 percentage of questions to be answered, and how you prepare for the exam, which topic depends upon you. Generally, people say there is a heavy, tough questions are asked from, let's say, research methodology and statistics and Indian psychology, but you need not have any, fear or kind of apprehension about any specific topic. You can choose. They asked 10 questions from each unit given in the syllabus. But we are concerned about it because some of us have kind of fear, or let's say a little bit anxious towards mathematics, statistics. We do not take it very seriously. That's the reason why people say it was tough. And moreover, it is asked in case studies. So kind of one question, if you are preparing well, you can get 10 out of 10. So otherwise, equal weightage is given. And generally, another thing, with regard to the nature of questions, though people say that there is a changing trend in terms of the way how questions are asked. UPSC, this UGC or UPSC, any type of exams, now they are not assessing your memory. They are assessing your conceptual understanding. You need to focus on concepts and many things. The narratives are so many. But please remember one thing, without memory, without having proper data in your mind, you can't interpret properly. So, whatever has to be learned, the factual things, you need to learn it. That's the minimum thing. You take any type of intelligence assessment, being a psychologist, you know it. The Any type of psychological assessment, memory is an important component. You know it well. Simple information processing approach, or you take any approach, memory will be there. That will be the component. If you are losing it, you do not know what was past, what is future. But the way how the narrative is given in the for reducing exam anxiety or quality, let's say increasing the quality of teaching and learning. What they meant is do not memorize without any understanding, rote memorization. That only that. But it's not that we are moving away from memory-based test to other things. Without having basics, the knowledge, you will not be able to interpret or understand things properly. So I would suggest whatever has to be learned, remembered, focus on those basics. So the basic questions are always asked, fact-oriented questions are there. You take any type of exams, it will follow the normality curve. So the fact-oriented questions will be there. And we cannot ignore it, saying that we are preparing for higher exams. They are testing our understanding comprehensive ability, and therefore we'll focus more on that. Ignore the facts. Please focus on the facts and the important. Let's say who gave this theory of two-factor theory given by Spearman, Sternberg. No, they confuse you with similar names. And we can't ignore such a things and lose 2 marks. Okay, so no, you need to have a fact file, and that has to be thoroughly learned. And sometimes if you look at the question papers in central universities, they also ask what is the name of the what you call Freud's dog. Such questions are asked in PhD entrance exams. We might have heard about Pavlov's dog, but we may not be aware of the name of the dog. But sometimes they do ask such questions. And of course, you need not go behind learning all those things. What is the name of the cat, or dove or dogs? But then what I'm saying is, whatever the facts, the year and the name of important theories and their classifications, we need to know it. So fact-based questions are also there, and then concept-based and core. Need not to go beyond such things. These are all random questions. Sometimes some extreme questions are there, and we can't ignore. So that's what I'm saying. And so for paper 1, paper 2, as I said, there are areas which you are good in that. There are certain areas where you need help, you need to discuss with people. Certain type of questions you can learn, some things you need clarity. So that clarity aspects and certain strategies, your coaching centers will be highly useful for you. And these are the basic books, probably you may be aware, but then for environment, since you are there in, let's say, UPSC coaching, taking from kingmakers, you may be having access to certain materials like the environmental notes. But then basic thing, even if you are sticking to one book on UGC NET paper 1 will help you, but some details, this book by textbook of environmental studies for undergraduates, again it is freely available in UGC website, and more or less it is also covered as part of your elective paper in almost in all the colleges as well as in the universities. I think now almost everyone would have studied these kind of basic things, but you can refer this book. This will ensure at least 3 to 4 questions. One question may be from current affair. And otherwise, what are the books to be referred for, let's say, your overall preparation? I think Arun sir will cover almost what has to be done from various books as well as from other extra sources. But one suggestion is that stick to one book, basic book, either Barron or Cicerati. So that you need to revise multiple times, at least 10 times. Revise multiple times. But other things like theories of personality, cognitive psychology, other core papers like development psychology, all those things, I think SARS class notes will be more than sufficient for you. So you need not to worry about it. But one basic book you need to revise multiple times. With regard to research methodology and psychological testing and Indian psychology, I'll be covering, and the notes will be provided. And if you want to read on your own, I would suggest psychological testing by Gregory. Psychological testing by Gregory, that will give you, all the important concepts. But I'll also be referring to psychology, statistics without mathematics for psychology. So somebody who doesn't like statistics but then want to understand how the statistics is applied in psychology, you can read that book, Statistics Without Mathematics for Psychology. But I will be covering all these books and giving you, presenting in the class as well as sharing to you in terms of notes. But then Indian psychology, I think mostly this one book, now Foundations of Applications of Indian Psychology, will be good enough. This particular book. Otherwise, there is one book by Dr. Ramakrishna Rao, Indian Psychology. That is also a very good book. But too much of, probably you may have to allot a time to study that. If you have studied in your, I think Madras University has it in syllabus on Indian psychology. And different university, includes that now, but then we'll also cover it here, all those important things. But otherwise, you may have to, focus on one book. But then if you have to study these many books, I don't think you'll have sufficient time. It is like you have to revisit your all semesters and study that. So in that way, this coaching will be of very useful for you, right? I think so. Fact-oriented questions, and then how to approach it. As I said, there are certain fact-oriented questions. At least 10 to 15 percentage of the questions will be there based on fact. Without knowing the basic concepts, the basic fact, you may not be able to answer that question. So sometimes if you look at the question, they may change the year or the author. I mean, the author, the major theorist. Such things are all happening. So if though you are aware of the concept of that particular theory, if you are overlooking the question and the name of the person who has given the theory, it goes wrong. So like that, you need to categorize the types of questions are asked, and need not do that. But then you need to be aware, okay, where is the trap in that particular question, and to note it, then answer it before answering. Otherwise, most of us, being in the masters, basic concepts you will be aware of it. So these are some of the questions asked. So that's what I meant by saying that you need to be thorough with what is there in the textbook. Say, how will you answer this question, and from where they have picked up. It is there as a table in Caesarally. So if you know these tables given in Caesarally, you will be able to answer at least 10 questions, sir. So these are things which you need not to sit and think there. So if you know it by heart, you will be able to answer it. Of course, basic understanding concepts you will be able to eliminate, but then just answer it. And probably you think, you allot those hour for thinking, like logical reasoning or case studies. So there are certain questions which require your time for thinking. So in that way, that's what I meant by saying that, okay, if you know certain fact that has to be memorized, memorize it. There is nothing wrong in that. That will save your time and improve your accuracy. And obviously, this question requires basic understanding of the concepts. So, and again, this requires, kind of application of your knowledge in order to answer these questions. So such questions are also asked regularly. So we'll have a practice. Say for example, here all of us know earlier they used to ask, okay, what are the, let's say, the components, let's say multiple intelligence theory, Harvard Gardner, and which year, the frames of mind. Only such questions were asked. But which is given by him, which is not given by him. That's earlier. But you see, arrange in correct sequence. So that chronologically need to have understanding, but the way how frame the question depends. It's not that we need to completely ignore. Right. And in similar way, questions are asked from, let's say, theories of personality, human development, and emerging areas, social psychology. So in that way, all those 10 topics we will be addressing. And special importance have to be given, especially with regard to how you work out the previous year question papers. In my understanding, uh, let's say earlier, you can always say, even if you go back to previous year question papers, let's say 2012, they started with the MCQ. From 2012 to 2018, till they computerized the exam. Till then, in the month of June cycle, I mean, they will ask case study related to ANOVA. In December, they will ask related to factor analysis. Sometimes, if there is a re-exam due to some reason, then they may change it. But more or less, it will be fixed. Why I say this? Earlier, we were able to predict. Okay, last time they asked this case study, this time they will ask this. But since they have computerized it and there are parallel exams that is happening, and now you need to learn different types of case studies. So from psychological testing as well as from research methodology and combination of statistics. So if you are thorough, let's say combine these three areas and prepare for your exam and ready, this you can comfortably answer at least 8 questions from each area, and one or two maybe a little bit technical, or they would have taken from some research article sometimes, not always. But otherwise, this is one area which you need to focus on the previous question paper and solve it. Almost 60% or 70% of the questions are asked from previous question paper, but they will slightly tweak it. So you need to learn few formulas related to ANOVA, let's say degrees of freedom for interaction effect, degrees of freedom for error. Such things you need to learn. So this is the way how overall things are there, and you may have to uh, plan your preparation accordingly. So that's the idea behind this presentation. So if anything that somebody wants to ask, I'm not sure whether it is interactive session or kind of thing.